And that's
that's the place where we.
The balloon tracker, or what's
the balloon tracker? That's the radio sound tracker.
Radio sound tracker. So what does the balloon have with it? A radio transmitter? So we
hang on a radio transmitter which measures the temperature, and as it's going up, and sends back signal to this, and we track it.
So then, by tracking, you know the wind speed, the temperature,
and we know how fast it's rising through so we can get the wind speed at various levels.
And how far up does that go?
100,000 feet. Or better.
And then it blows up and...
Yeah.
Well, it's somewhat primitive over,
yeah.
Today's methods. And then this is a guy making hydrogen with the cylinders, and those are like a gas cylinder or like an oxygen tank cylinder kind of thing?
Yeah.
High pressure?
High pressure cylinders.
Okay. And you're not supposed to put a double batch in.
That's right. They're good for over 2,000 pounds per square inch.
Okay. With the relief valve on there.
With the relief valve. Mm-hmm.
That eventually will go.
It'll go higher, but...
Okay, so I'm curious about one thing was that you said that you put pans underneath the plane engines.
Blankets. We pull blankets underneath. When the plane would stop, in order not to get any oil drops on there, because oil drops will absorb the sun, and it'll create a hole.
Oh.
And
okay, so then you got a hole.
They wouldn't allow them to smoke or do anything while they're out there on the runway. They clear that off. They keep it clean, and if there's anything, it starts a little puddle, and then the puddle will absorb more than the ice will, and it just grows.
Really?
Yeah. And so it gets in the summertime now. That's not a real big deal in the winter, but in the summertime.
But eventually it becomes summer.
That's right.
The oil that was there is still there.
That's right. And
okay.
We scraped it off. Actually, what happened was that we just barely made it out the last time out because we were scraping off the ice, and the 20-ton rub grader that we had, you could just barely see its tar marks in there. We thought it was going to be in good shape, but we kept pushing the ice out to the side. And then if you get a place that water begins to form, and if we didn't push it off, we'd drill a hole in a drain. But then we got to the point where it was at sea level because of all the ice that we built up on the side, so we couldn't drain it anymore.
Right.
And
so now wait a minute, even though there's ice ridges that are
bigger ones,
50 feet high out along the edge of that flow.
We were talking about, we were pushing it out to where we had a ridge of only, it was probably only 4 or 5 feet on the edge of
pushes the ice down
on the runway, but it was heavy enough that when we finally drilled through, we were at sea level on the runway.
Oh, so you want to quit drilling then?
So we had to quit drilling then. and then when the airplane came and landed, the DC-4, it got a groove that deep.
Wow.
And we thought, we may not get off. So they got in the same ruts.
They're full of water then. Or not?
No.
That'd be good.
There were places that probably would be, but they took off and they pulled the wheels up. They said if we had not pulled the wheels up when we did, we'd have hit the ice at the end. We just barely made it.
And so this stuff, when you got rid of the waste off of the tanks, you said you put it in a hole that you'd heated up. Was that where all the waste went? Would be in one of these heated?
Yeah. We just drilled drop it down into the ocean.
Okay.
And the water there was generally about 28 degrees because it's salt water.
Salt water.
And the other thing is they thought that the maximum temperature that we would ever, or the coldest temperature you'd ever get, would probably be about minus 30 in a winter, but we found out it did get down to minus about 38. And the reason was that the dry snow on top turned out to be a better insulator. In other words, over just a little distance of snow, you had a big temperature difference.
Right. Well, that's, works with snow caves and whatever.
Right.
So because it's the ocean.
Right.
It's not
Because
supposed
that's
to get
just
colder than
8 feet down, you're at 28 degrees.
Okay. So Antarctica gets a lot colder then.
Oh, yeah, because they're 10,000 feet in the air and got all kinds of insulation underneath them.
This
This
is
is
a
the guy,
radio room or something?
This is where we sent any messages we sent out were sent from here. He was the ham operator, so to speak, that allowed us to talk, and it was, so we would go and generally we could talk to folks back home about once a month. But it was during, I believe it was October, and into November, first part of November, that we had a month that we couldn't get any communications at all out. And we thought, is this a sunspot that's causing this? And because it was unusual for sunspots. If you have sunspots, we took pictures of this, and it didn't look like this. It looked the same. This was more of a blanket rather than and we didn't know what it was. We didn't know what. We were beginning to get worried because we went a whole month, so we had no communication at all except with the South Pole. And I didn't find out until 20 years later what that was.
And they couldn't help you. Did they have communication out too, or not?
Oh, yeah, everybody was out of communication.
Really?
Yeah.
So the people at the South Pole didn't have communication out?
With us, but that's it.
No? Really?
Yeah.
So you weren't going to come and help them? They weren't coming to help
that's right. But then we found out what it was. What it was, that it was the one and only time that the United States has set off an atomic bomb above our atmosphere, and that's what caused it.
Really?
And that's what they were doing that to find out what effect it would have on communications.
They found out.
They found out. And so if they set off a bomb and like that, again, that'll knock out all your GPSs and things like that.
Really?
Yeah.
So that's why we're trying to shoot missiles down with lasers now instead of just blowing them up with an atomic bomb up above there.
Oh yeah, they don't want to blow them off up there. But that effect they have called. What happens is they found out it created two ionized layers. And what happened is we would get between these layers and we'd go down to the South Pole and back, but it wouldn't get out. They couldn't get to the ground any place. We couldn't even talk to Point Barrow or any place in Alaska. And airplanes couldn't get to us. They got up.
Well, so whose idea was that?
Well,
to set up an atomic bomb.
It was our military that wanted to
the
find
test,
out.
just see what it had to do.
Yeah, that's right. They wanted to determine what would happen. Now they know.
Hopefully we're not trying that kind of...
Well, if they do, you know what's going to happen, though. I mean, you're going to lose all your GPS, because GPSs are out there 16,000 miles out.